NATO obliterates a Russian naval target. Putin orders nuclear war drills. 2 headlines, one night, and a continent holding its breath. Because what happened in the Black Sea in the last 24 hours is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of something far bigger, and by the time this video ends, you will understand exactly why military analysts are calling this the most dangerous 48 hours since the war began. Welcome back, everyone, to the Siege War. Now, before we go any further, if you've been with this channel for a while, you already know how this works, but if this is your first time here, consider this an invitation, not a request. Somewhere out there, a friend, a neighbor, someone you trust, they're going to ask you, did you hear what happened with NATO and Russia? And wouldn't it feel good to say, yes, and I'll show you exactly where to go for the truth? That's what hitting that subscribe button does. It costs nothing. It takes 2 seconds. And it means the next time something this serious happens, you won't miss it. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from tonight? Drop it in the comments below. This channel reaches every corner of the globe, and I always like knowing who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's get into it. It happened on a Thursday, in the skies above the Black Sea. 2 Romanian Air Force F-16 Fighting Falcons were scrambled into the air. Their mission was urgent. A drone had been spotted near the Neptune Deep Gas Project, a major offshore natural gas field sitting off the coast of Romania. This was not just any drone. It was heading straight toward one of Europe's most important energy sites. The pilots moved fast. As they closed in, they identified the object as a naval surface drone, and it was believed to have come from Russia. That detail matters. It matters a lot, because this wasn't just a stray object drifting through international waters. Military analysts determined the drone was an active threat. It was loaded with explosives. And it was on a direct path toward critical infrastructure that powers homes and businesses across Europe. So the pilots made their decision. One of the F-16s opened fire using its M61A1 Vulcan cannon, a 6-barrel Gatling gun capable of firing thousands of rounds per minute. The result was immediate. The drone was destroyed roughly 80 nautical miles east of the coastal city of Constanța. No damage was done to the gas project. No casualties were reported. But the message sent by this event was loud, and it traveled far beyond the Black Sea. Romanian President Nicu responded almost immediately. He condemned what he called an intensification of irresponsible incidents on the part of the Russian Federation. His words were careful, but firm. This wasn't framed as an isolated accident. It was framed as a pattern of testing, probing, pushing at the edges of NATO territory. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen echoed that concern. She described the incident as part of a larger escalating campaign of threats. Threats directed not just at Romania, but at the European Union as a whole. Think about what that means for a moment. 2 of the most senior political figures in Europe are not calling this a one-time event. They are calling it a campaign, a deliberate, ongoing effort. And that raises a serious question that military observers are now asking. If this drone had reached its target, what would have happened next? Neptune Deep is not a small operation. It is one of the largest offshore natural gas projects in Europe, sitting in the Black Sea, feeding energy into a continent already strained by years of conflict and shifting supply lines. An attack on that facility would not just be a military event, it would be an economic one. Energy prices, supply chains, regional stability, all of it could be affected by a single successful strike. That is why this interception matters so much. It wasn't just about stopping one drone, it was about protecting a piece of infrastructure that touches millions of lives far beyond Romania's borders. For NATO, this incident adds to a growing list of confrontations along its eastern edge. Drones, surveillance aircraft, naval incursions, each one testing where the line is, each one forcing a response. And each response carries risk, because every time a NATO aircraft fires on something believed to be Russian in origin, the possibility of miscalculation grows. Right now, officials in Romania and across the European Union are treating this as confirmation of something they've feared for months, that the war is no longer staying inside Ukraine's borders. It is reaching outward, touching NATO territory, touching NATO infrastructure, and forcing NATO forces to make split-second decisions with consequences that could ripple far beyond one night over the Black Sea. As this story continues, one thing becomes clear. This was not the only incident happening that day, not even close. Because while fighter jets were engaging a drone near Romania's coast, something else was unfolding in the skies over Ukraine, something involving aircraft that may be carrying capabilities never seen before in this war. While the world was still processing what happened near Romania's coast, another story was quietly unfolding in the skies over Ukraine. And this one raised even more questions than answers. Footage emerged showing a Russian MiG-29 fighter jet closing in on a Shahed-type long-range attack drone. These drones have become a familiar and feared weapon in this war. Cheap, fast, deadly in numbers. But what happened next was not familiar at all. The MiG-29 did not fire a single missile. It did not use its cannon. It simply positioned itself behind the drone, and moments later the drone went down. No explosion from a missile, no visible gunfire, just a drone falling out of the sky. Military observers watching the footage immediately began asking the same question: what just happened? The leading theory is that the jet may be equipped with a new form of electronic warfare technology, a system capable of disabling a drone without firing a single shot. If true, this would mark a significant shift in how this war is being fought. For years, drones have ruled the skies over this conflict. They are cheap to build, hard to fully stop, and have reshaped modern combat in ways few predicted. But an aircraft that can silently disable them without using ammunition changes the equation entirely. It means fewer resources spent per intercept. It means less risk of debris causing damage on the ground. And it means one side may now hold a quiet technological advantage that the other side has not yet countered. This is not a small development. This is the kind of shift that can alter the balance of an entire battlefield. But the story does not end there. Because at the same time, something else began appearing over the skies of Ukraine. New types of drones. Types that had never been seen before in this war. One of them is believed to be a modified version of a known attack drone, but modified in ways that make it different from anything analysts have documented so far. A second, entirely unfamiliar type has also been spotted. Its origin, its purpose, its capabilities, still unclear. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes this so concerning. When a new weapon appears on a battlefield, it usually means one thing. Someone is testing something. Testing new technology. Testing new tactics. Testing how the other side will respond. Every new drone type that enters this war adds another layer of unpredictability. Analysts now have to ask, are these upgrades to existing systems? Are they entirely new designs? Are they being supplied by outside partners? Each of those answers carries different implications for how this war continues to evolve. And when combined with the naval drone incident near Romania, a broader picture starts to form. This is no longer a war confined to trenches and front lines. It is a war being fought in the air, over water, and increasingly with technology that neither side has fully revealed to the public. Every intercepted drone, every unidentified aircraft, every silent takedown is a small piece of a much larger and more complicated puzzle. And as these aerial confrontations multiply, so does the risk. Because the more advanced the technology becomes, well, the harder it becomes to predict what happens next. Right now, military analysts across NATO countries are studying this footage closely. They want to know exactly what capability that MiG-29 used. They want to know exactly what those new drones over Ukraine are designed to do. Because in a conflict already defined by unpredictability, these are the details that could determine what happens in the weeks ahead. And while all of this was happening in the skies, on the ground, something else was being uncovered. Something far more secretive. Something buried, quite literally, just outside one of Europe's largest cities, thousands of kilometers away from the Black Sea and the skies over Ukraine. Another chapter of this story was already in motion. This one takes place near the Kuril Islands, a remote, disputed chain of islands near Japan. Russia conducted large-scale military drills there. And these were not ordinary exercises. A nuclear submarine was deployed. A cruiser joined the operation. And Russian forces fired Bastion anti-ship missiles at ranges reaching 300 kilometers. Here is why that detail matters so much. The Bastion missile system is capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. This wasn't a routine training exercise. This was a demonstration, a message sent through fire and steel aimed at anyone watching. And the timing was not random. These drills followed a personal visit by President Putin to the islands himself. When a head of state visits a military zone and nuclear-capable weapons are fired shortly after, analysts don't see coincidence, they see intention. Footage from the drills shows missile after missile launching into the sky, multiple Bastion launchers, firing in sequence, each one representing a system built not just to strike ships, but to carry a warhead capable of catastrophic destruction. This sends a clear signal to the world. Russia is showing that its nuclear forces remain active, mobile, and ready. But while missiles were lighting up the sky near Japan, a very different kind of operation was being uncovered thousands of kilometers away, near Berlin. German investigators, working alongside several major news organizations, uncovered something troubling. A hidden weapons cache, buried, concealed, waiting, believed to have been planted by Russian intelligence. Inside, investigators found 2 functioning firearms. Once discovered, the cache was treated as compromised. The weapons were disabled and fitted with GPS trackers, allowing authorities to monitor any future activity connected to them. A suspect linked to the cache was later arrested, not in Germany, but in Romania, the same country where just hours earlier a naval drone had been shot down near a major gas facility. Germany's federal prosecutors confirmed they had been investigating this case since November, which means this wasn't a sudden discovery. This was the result of months of quiet, careful work. And here is what makes this so alarming to security analysts. This is not a new tactic. During the Cold War, Russian intelligence used this exact method. Weapons, money, and false documents, hidden in secret locations across Europe, ready for agents to retrieve at a moment's notice, ready to support sabotage, ready to support targeted attacks. One such cache from that era was even discovered inside the United States, in the state of Minnesota. Decades later, that Cold War playbook appears to be back in use. Only now it's happening on European soil in real time as tensions with NATO continue to rise. So consider what unfolded within the span of just 1 week. Russia firing nuclear-capable missiles near Japan, a hidden weapons cache uncovered near one of Europe's most important capitals, and a naval drone believed to be Russian destroyed near NATO territory in Romania. 3 separate events, 3 different locations, but one connecting thread runs through all of them. Escalation, not through open declarations of war, but through actions. Missiles fired, weapons hidden, drones launched, each one small enough to avoid triggering an immediate large-scale response, but large enough to keep raising the stakes week after week. And that is exactly what makes this moment so difficult to predict. Because when nuclear signaling is paired with covert sabotage networks, the line between posturing and preparation becomes dangerously thin. Security officials across Europe are now asking the same question. If this is happening now, during a period some still call controlled tension, what happens if that control begins to slip? The answer to that question may depend on what happens next. Because while Russia was firing missiles and hiding weapons, another country was quietly stepping deeper into this conflict. A country many hoped would stay on the sidelines. And for months, one question has hung over this war. Would other countries get pulled in? Now, there is an answer, and it comes from North Korea. Reports indicate that roughly 90 North Korean soldiers are now operating inside Russia. Their role is specific. They are running KN-23 ballistic missile systems. These are not training exercises. Intelligence assessments suggest these systems, using 6 modified launchers, will likely begin striking Ukrainian cities soon. Think about what that means. A country thousands of kilometers away from this conflict is no longer just supplying weapons. It is supplying trained personnel to operate them directly. Maps showing the blast range of these missiles reveal just how serious this development is. A significant portion of Ukraine now falls within striking distance, each warhead capable of carrying up to 1,000 kilograms of explosive force. That is enough to devastate entire city blocks in a single strike. This marks a turning point. North Korea is no longer a distant supporter. It is becoming an active participant. And while that development was unfolding, fighting continued on multiple fronts without pause. Russia's Perm oil refinery was struck hard, hit just hours before this story was being reported. A critical piece of Russia's energy infrastructure, damaged in the same week as everything else unfolding across the region. At the same time, Ukrainian forces launched a swarm of powered strike drones targeting the Tavrida power station, located in Russian-occupied Crimea. Footage shows anti-aircraft fire lighting up the night sky as Russian forces attempted to shoot the drones down. Elsewhere, updated footage revealed the launch of Ukraine's OTR-21 Tochka tactical ballistic missile, armed, launched, and sent toward targets deep inside Russian territory. And in a moment that stunned military observers, footage captured a Russian attack helicopter chasing down a Ukrainian drone mid-flight, firing missile after missile in pursuit. Missile missed again. A rare glimpse into just how chaotic and unpredictable this battlefield has become. Meanwhile, questions about Russia's next move continue to grow. Reports suggest Moscow may be preparing to mobilize as many as 800,000 additional troops. But Russia's ambassador to the United Nations dismissed those claims directly, stating that no massive mobilization is planned or expected. Whether that statement holds up remains to be seen. Given Russia's history of denying military actions later confirmed to be true, many analysts are treating this claim with caution. So where does this leave the world as of this moment? A Russian naval drone destroyed near NATO territory in Romania, new, unidentified drone types appearing over Ukraine, nuclear-capable missiles fired near Japan, a hidden weapons cache uncovered near Berlin, North Korean soldiers now operating ballistic missile systems inside Russia, and continued strikes hitting energy infrastructure on both sides of this conflict. Individually, each of these events might be seen as a single data point. Together, they form something far more significant, a pattern showing a conflict that is no longer confined to one country, one border, or one set of participants. It is spreading, quietly in some cases, loudly in others, but spreading nonetheless. Military analysts, government officials, and security experts are now watching closely to see what comes next. Because right now, the situation on the ground is shifting by the day. sometimes by the hour. And as more countries, more weapons, and more territory become involved, the central question is no longer whether this conflict will escalate further. It is how far and how fast that escalation will go.